guys, to the Dirty Dads podcast. And today's topic is kind of a controversial one, if you will. And it is the military getting soft? And are other nations laughing at us? I think that's the real question. So let's start this off. What we're going to go over today is there's a lot of, I guess, far left leaning politics getting into the military and adjusting certain policies that obviously us as veterans on this podcast didn't have to deal with. So there's a whole nother generation coming in that hasn't dealt with it. So with that said, Hammer, please lead us off. What are your thoughts?
So first off, do I think the military is getting soft? Do I think it's becoming less combat proficient? Absolutely. I think a lot of that. I think a lot of it's due to geopolitical ideology coming from the left of our nation, inserting itself into military policies and procedures. Leading off with, I'll lead off with what I perceive as a complete farcity in them saying that there's systemic racism throughout the military based off of, their political scheme in civilian world and trying to intertwine it with the military. It's just not a truth. It's not a thing. At least for me, it wasn't. I served with men of every background you can think of, possibly imagine. I mean, I served with the Russian, I served with the guy from the Bronx, I served with the guy from Mexico, I served with the guy from, Indonesia. And we never had that issue where we would, it'd be even the most racist guy from Kentucky that you knew he grew up in a region of the country where, the N word, if you will, I'm not going to say it on here, but the word we all know is a thing of daily life in that part of the country. I've never seen him lash out in a bit of racism through all 4 years or whatever he was in the military. He treated everybody. It didn't matter what skin color, where you were from, who you were sleeping with, none of that. It wasn't, your skin color, your race did not play a portion in how he treated you as a brother. And didn't do it for me and any of the guys I served with. We were all tight. We were all brothers. We were all there for one purpose, to get everybody home alive. And I think they're detracting from that and detracting from the ability of these men and women by creating all this drama in the background. And I think it takes away from the lethality of force. That's just one thing that does it. And later on,
understandable. Absolutely. Topics. Now, Lee's new to the Dirty Dads podcast here, and he comes from a slightly older generation than us as far as veterans go. So I don't want to call you out. I'm not going to ask your age or anything crazy like that. What's that?
What was the Civil War like?
Back in WW2.
Yeah. So what's your take on this, Lee, from what you've seen so far?
Well, I will throw my age out. I'm 51. I'll be 52. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I honestly, you ask if the military is soft. It's been getting soft for years. And my biggest complaint about it is, I think it started when we started getting civilian people in the Pentagon running our military. They don't understand how the military works. When I went in 89 is when I first joined. And I came all the way up through with don't ask, don't tell. And then it went from that to full blown, let us know your sexual orientation before you come in. Everybody's welcome. It's not a social experiment. It's not. And like Joe kind of touched on, we're all there. I don't care what branch you're in, especially if you deploy somewhere. We're all there to save each other's lives. You can't be throwing all these social experiments in there and go, well, let's see what happens if we put these people together. Or civil rights. My first duty station was Iceland in 90 to 91. And when I did my in brief up there, they actually told us my rotation was the first rotation that the Icelandic people allowed African Americans on the island.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. It's 90 1990. I'm like, are you kidding me? But it was in the agreement for the base. Yeah. And I mean, Iceland, they weren't really happy having Americans up there to begin with. I won't go as far as to call them the Germans from the 40s, but they didn't want their population ruined by the Americans. So it's just, as far as gays in the military, I had issues with that because I ran lodging. I didn't have issues because you were gay. There's been gay people in the military since the military started. There's no reason you need to run around bragging about it. I don't run around bragging about who I banged last night. It just doesn't affect my mission, so it's not relevant. And then you go to transsexuals, and they just keep throwing all this other stuff. We're not civilian. The military is not meant to be civilian. We're meant to go somewhere, take care of business, and come home and try to get as many people home alive as we can.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And that kind of, it kind of brings in a broader picture. Obviously we kind of touched on this. Identity politics are, what I'm gathering anyway is what we're seeing as weakening the military. We're focusing more on identity politics than we are the actual mission itself and the capability of completing the mission, which I couldn't agree more. I absolutely agree with both gentlemen on that. As far as that goes, just the aspect alone is it's no longer who's qualified to do the mission. We're going to come down to these weird, it depends on who you're married to or what you do and all this other nonsense. We just don't need it. So I absolutely agree. Now, as far as the aspect of looking at, obviously, well deployed, we've been in different places all around the world and stuff like that, and dealt with other militaries, as far as training aspects go. What do you think hinders us currently, based on our military or what we've seen before we've gotten out, compared to other militaries? Yeah.
So
why do other militaries seem more combat effective than us?
Because they're lowering the standards. So they're creating a universal standard for everybody. Everybody's not the same. And they're trying to create a universal standard between male and female, whatever, in a physical fitness aspect, right? So I've seen a big thing they took away in basic training. They took away the shark attack, right? And the shark attack's designed to shock you. It's designed to shock you and make you break, right? You were a drill sergeant, that's 72 hours of drill sergeant in your face, just destroying you for 3 days until you break, or 4 days, or however long. The first red phase, really, in infantry basic training, they just break you and break you and break you and break you. You get 8 seconds to eat, 12 seconds to shower, and you're back doing push-ups. You get an hour to sleep. You're back up. They're throwing smoke grenades in your bay. They're doing all kinds of stupid craziness to break you out of the civilian cycle. I'm lazy. I want to eat a donut, right? Of no, now we're going to turn you into a war machine. That's what we have to do, because the military is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that is fight and win wars, right? Period. Cut and dry. There's no other instance. And so if you look at us compared to, say, China, right? I'm going to use China a lot because they're a big, they're our number one adversary militarily in the world.
Well, that's a hot topic right now. Yeah, I agree.
So basing it off of them, they teach masculinity training for their ground troops to make them more masculine and more devastating to the enemy, right? So if we're going to take that away from our infantry and we're going to demasculate our infantry, we're going to demasculate our ground troops, we're going to lower the standard for what males have to accomplish physicality wise, shooting wise, any type of training wise, and we're going to bring it down to another level so that everybody can feel inclusive, the inclusivity part of this thing. It just detracts from once again, detracts from the mission, detracts from them being able to win wars.
Okay. I can see that. Lee, what's your take?
Well, I think my biggest take is they started worrying way too much about feelings. And I saw this. I did, between active duty and Air National Guard, I did 22 plus years. When I went in, there was a mission. You were told what the mission was. You were told what to do, and you did it.
Yeah.
And if you whined and cried and boo-hooed, excuse my language, tough shit, go do your mission.
Yeah.
And I'd say 3/4 of the way through my time in, I mean, I'd look at somebody, I tell them to do something. No, I don't want to. I don't think I asked you if you wanted to. It's part of your job. Do it. Nope. And then they went crying to the commander, and I ended up in front of the commander explaining why I was so mean. I wasn't mean. I've done everything I asked anyone else to do. So it's your turn. You're coming up through the ranks. And, when you start, there's certain times you should take someone's feelings into account. I mean, if there's a major issue with their family, or, they lost a loved one or their wife, yes, then you worry about feelings. But whether you want to go, and Air Force didn't do this, whether you want to go on that 8-mile march or not, that's irrelevant. You joined voluntarily, grab your stuff, get your butt up, and see you later. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that wicked I couldn't tell you how many times I got in trouble because I didn't speak right to somebody, or I was mean, and that's when I realized, guess what? It's time to get out.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
The only other thing, I've been reading some articles on this, is other countries don't get into all the messes we get into. There is no reason we should be in half the places we're in.
Okay. Well, that brings into the next segment. So absolutely, I'm with you on that. We'll definitely touch base. So I see where you guys are coming from. Absolutely. I see kind of where it stands on that. I do think we have an issue, but then again, I think every generation, older generations, like, the generation before me, soft. You guys are a bunch of cowards. Well, back in my day, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like, in a weird way, we kind of sound like that group, like, you guys are weak, compared to the last generation. So in all fairness, I get it. And I agree with Lee's statement on there's a time to get work done, essentially. And then there is, we could take care of family. The job of an NCO or non-commissioned officer, or even officers, is to take care of your soldiers so they're prepared to take care of the job. So I absolutely agree. But then there's a certain point, I think we can all agree on this in our careers, that we just had to bite down and grin it, because it sucked no matter what we did. There was no fun to it. So I absolutely agree. And Joe, I mean, you brought up great points. So do you have anything to add? I saw you sitting there.
No, I wanted to hear from you, from the drill sergeant aspect of you. You spent almost 4 years training soldiers, training them from, one aspect to become a soldier. So what did you see while you were training, especially coming up to a few years ago when you got out?
Yeah.
Different from when we went into basic training. I'd like to know the differences in the lack of standards, or the touchy-feelies, as Lee was saying, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I did it as a respect thing. I think I took the way we did drill sergeant, because I did a lot of soft MOSs, and I wasn't a huge fan, and they were softer skin, I think, than we kind of grew up. But I curtailed, like, I didn't scream. My first cycle, I screamed. I lost my voice. After that, I didn't want to scream anymore. It was pointless. My thing was teaching lessons. You know what I mean? Like, guess what? I'll make you run. That's fine. We'll run. I'll line them all up. And then they show how they're selfish. The first guy wants to be the fastest because he wants to prove something, but you don't realize it's a team. And then you keep making them doing it, and eventually it clicks in and goes, we need to complete it as a group. Doesn't matter how fast. You're only as, good as your weakest link. So I did like little haikus and stuff like that to kind of teach them, listen, it doesn't matter that you can run, 11-minute 2-mile. All right. But if Sally can't, and you're going to leave her behind, it doesn't work that way. Not in the military, buddy. All right. So my job as a drill sergeant was just to teach these kids, listen, all you have is each other during basic training to get through, to go to your AIT or do whatever you're going to do in life. And then all you have in combat is each other. So I didn't yell. I just did the disappointment thing, like the dad thing. I'm like, you guys messed up, right? Like, I'm going to walk out of the room. You can all, take your hands out of your fourth point of contact. You know what I'm saying? Fix yourselves. And when I come back, if it's not done, then we're going to do it my way. You get to pick. And then they squared themselves away. 99% of the time, they squared themselves away. Yeah, what you got, Lee?
I got to tell you, you brought that up. That works. When I went through basic training, we had a couple male TIs and we had 2 female, and there was this little short female, and she was yelling, screaming, "Oh, I will friggin' kill you" type of woman.
Yeah.
She got sick or something, and we got the other female, and we were out on the drill pad practicing, and we were screwing up left and right. And she literally looked and goes, "I am so disappointed," turned around and walked away. And there were 60 guys there. Yeah. We're all looking at each other like, "Oh, damn, we just hurt her feelings." We felt worse than all the times we got yelled at.
Yeah, that's true. No, I get the yelling portion. I agree with the shark attack, like you were saying, Joe, and I totally agree with that aspect, because you need to put them in their place initially. Any human needs that. You need to get out of whatever realm you came from, because everybody comes from different backgrounds, and you have to break a person down to a certain extent to mold them, to indoctrinate them into our military and what the standards and everything like that are. Because everybody goes in there. I mean, we've all heard it. There's tons of these little videos of, well, if a drill sergeant gets in my face, I'm gonna beat his ass. Like I heard that all the time. Especially, like, I'd stay quiet in the back of the bus, when picking soldiers up, and there always be one tough guy. Like, all right, buddy, well, we got 15 minutes, and then I'll put my drill sergeant hat back on. You'll have no clue who I am, right? You know what I mean? So I get it. You need to break them down, and you need to build them back up in a positive way. You can't just stay on them the entire time, because if you call somebody a piece of poop for 13 weeks, you got to call them a piece of poop for a couple weeks, and then realize, hey, this is the proper way to do it, and then praise them to build them back up. So I absolutely agree with both of you. I think it's a different generation too. We grew up playing outside. I didn't want to be in the house growing up. I had video games, but not really, like Nintendo. We had some other stuff, but I wanted to be out playing. This generation is totally different. A lot of them, I'd say at least 80% that I've seen, don't go outside. They'd rather be in the AC, hanging out. They're not as strong as we were, that I noticed. It's true. It's sad, but very, very true. The muscle maturity is not there. A lot of these kids, some of them are stellar super soldiers. I give it to them. They played sports, top of the league, but that's 1%. It's not the other 80% that literally just got off the couch eating Cheetos thinking this was going to be Call of Duty. So, anything else to add, guys, before we move on to the next one?
Nintendo?
Yeah.
Wow, that was high tech for me. I started with Atari 2600.
Yeah, I have one of those too. Yeah, but that was I wasn't very proficient.
Nobody knows. You had a stick and 2 buttons.
What button? Yeah, you're sticking a red button.
We only had 1 button, but we had the little rolly thing for Pong.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what trained us for the military, hand-eye coordination.
Oh, man, we're getting old.
Yeah.
So this next topic is kind of huge. Going as far as proficiency goes, and I think this was kind of a huge issue. I guess I'll dabble a little bit of my opinion real quick. I think we put ourselves in limitations. I think after the Vietnam War happened, and they had a lot of people come through and actually see what really goes on during war, and they had all these photographers and everything like that, it dulled us. I think that experience, because people don't want to see war. Let's be truly honest here. And if you're at home and you're listening to this, you don't want to see the dirty stuff that goes on during war. You want to see the victory. You want to see the planes flying by and stadiums and soldiers coming out with weapons. You want to see the cool stuff. You don't want to see the dirty stuff, right? Or the dirty stuff that has to happen to accomplish the mission. You guys don't want to see that. And that's the reality. Now, they saw that in Vietnam, and now I believe that a lot of people have boots on their neck. And I know Joe was with me in Ramadi, and that was the Wild Wild West. It was like somebody had a shovel, you do what you got to do to survive. It didn't matter. But other deployments I've had, it's like, what are you doing? Don't be aggressive. Smile. You know, like the ROE changes so much, and the enemy knows the ROE. You know, and if for anybody out there, the ROE is rules of engagement. The enemy knows the rules of engagement. We pretty much publicize what the rules of engagement are. Okay. And that already puts us at a disadvantage, because if they know what we're allowed to do, they will push the boundaries to go to that line. And then when it's time for them to strike, they'll cross it. We will never know the difference. So, with that said, as far as my opinion on this, I believe that's what's truly making the military soft. Now, I know we have a couple different generations here, which I think is fantastic, because I'd like to hear from Lee first on this one. As far as deployments and stuff like that go, and dealing with other militaries, I think we're strapped. We always have a hand behind our back going into a war because of the style that we have. Did you experience this? And if so, what are some of those experiences for our audience?
Being Air Force, I was kind of on the back line, back of the back lines. I mean, I was more support, but I was over in the desert a couple times, and I think you hit the nail on the head with Vietnam. Because I mean, you look back. I'm a huge history buff. You look back, Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II, Iwo Jima, all of that stuff. Korea, you didn't have the media and the photographers out there. You had the photographers, but they took their pictures, they brought them back, they checked them all out. You didn't see a lot of that stuff until after it was over.
Yeah.
So you look at all those conflicts. After we won all of those conflicts, this country, the civilians in it, ticker tape parades, congratulating everybody. They were happy to see him. Yeah. I think Vietnam era guys didn't get their welcome home because it was almost live streamed to the general public back home, and they were shocked at what it takes to win a war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then halfway through, the country turned on all the soldiers over there and went, oh, no, we don't want to see this, and we don't want you doing that. Well, guess what? You don't win a war by patting someone on the back, shaking their hand, and say, please be nice. It takes what nobody else wants to do. Hence, we all joined voluntarily, and those guys back then didn't.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do to get your butt back home, and I think the wars since then, Desert Storm, the second Iraq War, Afghanistan, all of it, that was definitely live streamed as it happened, and people don't want to see that. They want to see, oh, we went in, we killed the enemy. I mean, you could talk about it all day long, and we killed them, and they were bad people, and everybody's hoorah. You start seeing women and kids running with IEDs and bombs strapped to them, and they get blown up. I mean, they don't show that stuff in the video games. They don't show the women and children or the old guy that's calling in, telling the enemy where you guys are, and he gets taken out. And then all of a sudden, because the country was turning, that's when they changed their rules of engagement of, oh, well, you can't shoot unless you've been shot at. And then it went, well, and I'm exaggerating, but you can't shoot back unless you've been shot at 15 times by the same guy. And yeah, that's where we got weak. You can't win a war like that. You can't do it handcuffed.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to bring the segue because I know, Joe and I have a lot of experiences together in the military. We've done multiple deployments and everything. So him and I are going to be very similar kind of in that point of view. So without further ado, Joe, what you got, brother?
The biggest detriment, so obviously in Ramadi, it was a lot less, right? I don't remember seeing a reporter at all. Obviously, I was in the cool guy unit and kind of did our own little sneaky stuff and all that. And then you guys had to come save us because we'd always, get surrounded by all the bad guys, But at the same time, we, under George Bush, and I can only speak under that portion of George Bush, is our lethality level was very, very high. Because, as you said, guys tactically observing me on a cell phone, permission to engage, Roger, smoke, right? and going back to the whole news crew part of it is people didn't want to see that. So in Ramadi, I don't remember seeing an embedded news crew like we had in later deployments, to where in 08, 09, when the ROE started to change and Obama got inaugurated and his Pentagon took over and they changed our ROE. Well, no, you can't shoot at, no more warning shots. You can't be shot at, or you can't shoot until you're shot at. And then later on, going into like my last tour, they start calling it proportionate force. So they shoot at us with an AK, we have to shoot back with an M4, and we're like, no. We're here to win wars. Like, we're here to win the fight, dominate this fight. That was our entire job, is to use every asset at our availability to dominate this gunfight, right? And I'm gonna blow up buildings. And they were like, no, and they started actually like trying to indict people and send people to jail because
they did. A lot of people.
Yeah, well, they did in our second tour. I mean, we used and there's a book about it out there. If anybody's interested, go look up. It's by Captain Roger T. Hill. It's Dog Company More Than Brothers. And it's a great book, and it explains how we were failed by our chain of command because of, once again, politics. There was bad guys we caught, and they weren't going to send them up the higher echelon. So, I watched my best commander in First Sergeant I ever had get relieved of duty and forced retired because they made a decision to save American lives. And at the end of the day, if it comes down to my brothers living or me having to maybe kill the wrong person, I'm sorry, but my brothers are going to breathe before you do. I understand I'm in your country and so on and so forth, host nation, but at the same time, you start shooting at me, I'm going to send an A-10 in to take your entire gun line out, because then I win. I win the battle immediately, and I have less casualties of my friends, my brothers, the people I care about that I want to bring home. And that's, I think, the biggest thing we've forgotten is that do we want to look really good in the eyes of the public winning a war, or do we want to bring our brothers, sons, mothers, husbands, children, whatever it be, home to see their family again? And whatever that takes is what we need to do, period, cut and dry. And that's why we have, thank God for the Air Force. We give the Air Force a lot of crap, but when I call them up and they level a city block to keep me alive, I'm very grateful for that. And I'm not thinking about the collateral damage on it. I just want the bad guys to stop trying to kill me.
Yeah. Listen. When A-10s get on the station and you hear somebody's sexy voice come across there, you're like, roger that.
Yeah. I mean, it's for instance, so we were there first IED strike in 2008, right? And that's because we got laxed and we had ROE where we couldn't engage them first. So they came to us and they blew up a dump truck bomb and almost they could have killed everybody there. Luckily, nobody died that.
Yeah.
I mean, you even said, oh my God, it looked like a nuke went off.
It did, especially in the video. Yeah.
And I have video of it from Tower 1 that shows the thing going off. And the only thing we could think of was immediately get armed up and ready to fight, because we figured it was going to go down. And luckily it didn't. But I mean, how many days in Syedabad did we get shot at? Every day. That you could almost set your watch by it. Well, we had to wait for it. We had to wait to get a complex ambush and watch our brothers get blown to pieces. And RPGs through the leg and bullets through the neck, and watch these men die before it kept getting worse and worse and worse. Luckily, my third tour, I was on a task force, so I had very limited ROE, but because of the mission set we were on, they were all, kill capture.
Yeah, no, I get it. But look, I absolutely agree with you.
I see it as the restrictions. I see it as the public, as you said, the public didn't want to see it, so they made restrictions to make it look like we were more straight edge fighters and we were more, stand at attention, look really good in your uniform, rather than the dirty, gritty, bearded out, nasty dudes who haven't showered in a month that have been out in the field fighting these guys and trying to survive.
Yeah. Well, the politics changed. I mean, I'm sure, Lee, it probably happened under you as well. We were out there to win hearts and minds. At that point, you have a war. We went in, and we're fighting, essentially an insurgency type war, much like Vietnam, at a certain point in Vietnam, guys were just waiting to get hit. You were reactionary. You weren't proactive anymore. And that's what we kind of fell into. And, looking back on it, and especially from listening to both experiences and living it, it's the politics of it, winning hearts and minds. That shouldn't be the military. In my eyes, it shouldn't be the military. We're not properly trained to go do that. All right, we're just not set up. Okay, if you want, then listen, go get a social worker. Add a social worker corps to the military, okay, where they do nothing but social work and stuff like that, okay, and then you send them in, and it will just be security, okay. But it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense as a young man going into war and seeing all that, the horrors of war, and then telling me now we got to go kiss babies. It didn't make sense. Now this kind of brings in another topic here. Perceiving to other militaries, because obviously we know that tensions with China are getting high, especially with, going into fighting over the China Sea and, possibly going to war with Taiwan and taking that back over, because their president did vow that before he was out of office or dead, he was going to take Taiwan back and make it part of China. So us compared, Joe and I think we disagree, which I'm going to let him get into this, but I want to hear Lee first. Do you think in a current state of our military that we can go toe-to-toe with China?
I would like to hope we can. I don't believe we can. Part of it is the softness we talked about earlier. Part of it is the public. They would not, because China ain't going to play fair. There's a lot of countries out there ain't going to play fair. And, your media, even TV shows now are blood, guts, and gore. It comes from Desert Storm, shock and awe. I mean, everybody wants to see that in the movies, but when it comes to going toe-to-toe with somebody like China, you are going to see extreme blood and gore if we're going to fight and win that war properly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that. So, again, our hands are tied. China ain't going to restrict their guys. I mean, I hate to see it. I hope I'm dead before it happens. But the way things are going, I think we're going to get hit on our soil again. I don't think it's just going to be a couple buildings anymore.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not bragging, but 2 years before 9/11 hit, I had a talk with a lot of people in my organization. And I told them, I said, we're going to end up getting hit again. And when it happened, it shocked the hell out of me. But we're going the same. The entire country is just going lax. And it's about everybody else coming to this country. Oh, leave them alone. Don't pick up. Bullshit. We have some dangerous people in this country. And you better start tracking them, and you better start taking care of them, or we're going to get hit again.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't see that perspective coming, but yeah, absolutely. Joe, go ahead, brother, because I know we're a little opposite on this. So please, go ahead, school us with your thoughts on this.
So we have 11 battle groups. The United States Navy, all Nimitz-class aircraft carriers surrounded by destroyers, Tomahawks, submarines, anything you think, MIRVs with 5,000 Marines and 60 tanks on board. We also have 15,000 aircraft. We have 5,300 right about of those are combat aircraft, whether it be helicopter, fighter jets, so on and so forth. We have more combat aircraft than every other nation combined. And that's our only play. So I've actually looked at it since you and I talked. So we're not as far off, but we're still kind of different. I have my own way, and the simplest way to do it without the long end of the story is drop tactics in the South China Sea and wipe out all their rice. You can't feed your people; they can't fight. But
that's not going to happen.
It'll never.
No, it's not going to happen.
It'll never go that way because nobody can afford what's going to come next after that, right?
Yeah.
So in a straight up fight right now with our Navy being much larger than China, yes, in the next 7 years when they build enough fleets to compete, we're going to have a really tough time. The only difference is ground power. the ground power, if it's a ground on ground war, which it would eventually have to be because you have to have boots on ground, China's ferocity and the ability of them to fight cohesively without handcuffs on, and as you said, not fight fair, it would be really, really rough. We would have to implement the draft, something we talked about the other day, which I think we should emails, but check out our other podcast. It'll be on there. Because you know, I didn't think about it, but yeah, the country's getting laxed, you know. 9/11 happened because we relaxed. Straight up. 9/11 happened because really the Clinton administration before the Bush administration set it up. And the Bush administration didn't catch on fast enough, and within the first year of his presidency, bang. Right now, they're allowing anywhere from 25,000 to 75,000 people across our southern border being unchecked every day. And those aren't the ones they're even detaining. So we don't even know how many people are coming across the southern border, which is the most accessible point of our country. And that's so, and I know the argument is, well, the guys for 9/11 came through Canada. Well, if we're only worried about one spot in our country, who's coming through Canada, right? How many a day do you think out of 75,000 people might be some sort of terrorist who just wants to destroy Western civilization? At least one or two. So yeah, I mean, and if we get hit, I think it'll be on a larger scale as well. But back to the China thing, right now it would be a bloody, nasty, awful fight, but the United States would win because of our air power alone. We have more aircraft and our sustainability worldwide. So if we went to Taiwan, we have a network set up through our military since World War I to be able to go overseas, right? And it started in World War I, really ramped up during World War II to be our network, our bases worldwide. We can hit anywhere in the world in.
But that's diminishing. I agree with you, but that's been diminishing. They've been closing bases. They've been drawing back, which in a sense I agree, because I view a lot of it as a waste of money and resources, especially when Germany had like 19 bases at one point or something. I mean, it may be an exaggeration. Somebody probably correct me in the comments, but when you got like 19 bases, I mean, like, come on. And the wall already came down. Yeah, like, it's a little excessive. But I get what you're saying. Please continue.
Well, we have 207 bases. It's about to be 194 worldwide. We have bases everywhere. We have naval bases, air bases. I mean, Europe's pretty secure. We have this great place called Ramstein there, so I don't see China coming through there. Ramstein's huge and has a lot of fighter jets. Will they ever be able to land and hit our land nation, our land bases? No. It's generically impossible, and that's just because of the way the United States is set up. All of our bases are around our border for a reason. All of our major Marine, Army, Naval, air bases, they're all within striking distance of the coast. And then Canada's a barren wasteland that you can just drop bombs on. Well, they come through there. You just do airstrikes all day long. And
stop! You can't.
Airstrike.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
So, well, and that's what, if any other country ever said, hey, you can use our ports because you're never going to take over America's ports. Well, we can just bomb those too, and now they can't use their ports, so you can't get supplies, right? That's the difference with us. We have so many naval-based ports around the world, is we can resupply ourselves anywhere. So our logistical side, which Lee can probably talk about, is the logistical side of the house. We can refit our people within 48 hours anywhere in the world. The biggest thing is modern warfare, right? So modern warfare has gone to space. We have the Space Force. Yay, Captain Kirk. I don't know if you guys saw Lieutenant.
Yeah, I saw that meme, yeah.
Someday. Good for you, man. I hope you have a spaceship. It's coming down to satellites, right? So we have 174 known satellites for the United States in space. Can they launch ordnance from outer space? Absolutely. So what does China have? China has a lot of satellites too. Can they launch ordnance from outer space? So the biggest problem with modern warfare and going head to head with another country, and I'll leave it at this, is it's EMP strikes. As soon as you EMP everything, the lights are out. They can't tell where you're coming from. So, and I see that as being the next evolution of warfare is literally launching stuff at people from outer space to be a detriment to them, so you can land landing parties.
I agree with you. I think it's already started. Bear with me here. And I'm not saying, oh, China and all this other stuff. I think other countries have already started. And by that is, how do you fight a force that you don't believe you can win? You got to start infighting. You know what I mean? How do you break up a family? You know what I mean? Get two brothers to fight each other. All right? And that's the reality of it is we're so wrapped up in people thinking that there's systemic racism, which, listen, racism is never going to go away. All right? That is a reality. There's always going to be somebody somewhere that doesn't like somebody for some dumb reason or whatever the case is, or because they don't agree with somebody's view. But the reality is they're using that to make us fight with ourselves. And we are so divided right now. And America, I mean, we've been in war for over 20 years, in the same war for over 20 years. The public doesn't want another war. Even if they took over Taiwan, I guarantee you the public statistically would want nothing to do with it. Let them have it. That's exactly what people would think. Well, it was Taiwan. It was part of China in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, you would have all these different people coming from different ways, and then you would have, you know, obviously a different view on it, you know, battling. But we are so divided, people don't care about the flag anymore. They don't care about what it stands for. We lost ourselves as a nation, what we stand for. We used to protect women and children, and we cared about women and children, and everybody else, guess what? You were getting the hammer. All right? That's the reality. And I think we can all probably agree on that as we grew up. That's what we were taught. All right. In this day and age, America doesn't know what it stands for anymore. And that is our problem, you know, at least from my point of view. But that brings into the next segment here before this podcast is over. The social ideology that we talked about today, weakening our force, can possibly be the same force that's being used against us to weaken us. How do we think? Because I like to try to end something on, you know, anybody can complain about anything, you know, and everybody listening at home, we all know that one person. Everybody complains. Everybody's got poop to talk about, or someone can crap on something. How can we possibly fix this? And Lee, I'll start out with you. What do you think we can do as a society or in the military to try to fix what we've currently already messed up in our eyes?
Well, if we start with society, it will bleed into the military, because where do we get our military folks?
Yeah, true.
From society. And I agree with what you said. With all the infighting and everyone's against everybody else in this country, get back to caring about each other. And everybody's going to have issues with other people. And you're gonna, even in this country, you're not going to agree with somebody. That's fine. You sit down and talk to it. You may never agree. And that's okay too. But you don't have to hate that person. You don't have to go out in the streets and beat that person. You care. I mean, I'm no better than anybody else. I have people that if I see them, I'd like to pound the hell out of them. It's just, they've wronged me in some way. But there's other times. I mean, I'm a scruffy redneck, and there's other times I'm in the store and people look down on me like, oh, geez, I've actually been called a bum before. Literally thought I was a homeless guy. But you know what? I've been in line at the grocery store, and just for shits and giggles, I paid for the person's groceries in front of me, like $100.
Yeah.
Buy a coffee for some. Just start doing nice stuff to people. And guess what? That spreads. And every time I've done something nice for someone, they're like, oh my God, you didn't have to do that. Why'd you do that? I says, pay it forward. Just next time you see someone, you can do something nice. And if we all started doing that, we'd be in a whole lot better place.
Heard that. Wow. That is some wisdom, people. If you're listening to this podcast, I'll tell you what. Wow. That should be a meme somewhere. That's good. That's really good. All right, Joe.
Let me go get my cane now.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, I am so sorry. I should have picked you first because that is hard to follow up. I don't even know how I'm going to do this outro. So please get what you got, brother.
Well, I'll say it real quick. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's not Blue Lives Matter. It's not Red Lives Matter. It's American Lives Matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. It doesn't matter where you came from. If you're an American citizen, we all bleed the same color, and that's red. Period. Cut and dry. And that's really all I got about it. Is we're all Americans. Let's start acting like it. When I was a kid, I watched this movie called Superman. And Superman, red, white, and blue, right? He didn't have much white, but red and blue, but we got the gist, right? And his biggest thing was, I'm a fan of truth, justice, and the American way. All right. We lost that American way because everybody's infighting. And as you said, how do you get a empire to destroy itself? Yeah,
absolutely.
Turn it all down from the inside, right? We need to stop infighting and saying, oh, well, I'm better than you and you're a bigot and this and that. How about most of us aren't that much different, right? Whether we're poor or we're not poor or whatever, most of us aren't that much different. We could literally sit down and have a great time over a beer and a steak, no matter who we are, where we came from, right?
Yeah.
So we need to stop acting like we're better or different or worse than everybody else, and we need to just act like America again. Stop burning flags. That is your flag. Doesn't matter if you were born here, that is your flag. Period. That's your flag. That's your old glory. Whether you believe in what it stood for 200 years ago or not, it's yours. It's your property. And this is your land. So start acting like it. Start treating people with respect. And, maybe just have a little compassion for another person, and stop fighting each other over petty crap that doesn't exist in the real world. You're being brainwashed by whoever is telling you on TV that you need to do this, and that's all I got.
Absolutely. I think they're both great points. I think they're fantastic points. And just to recap on kind of what we're going over in this podcast, just, the softening, or what we see as a softening of the military and kind of what's going on. Also, I just want to put a little tidbit out there, is that as veterans, we've seen a perspective that a lot of civilians don't. And if you're listening to this and you are a veteran, okay, your experience may be different than ours. And I absolutely understand that, and we all respect that. So what we do is, I'd like everybody to know in this podcast that these are just opinions. We're not correct. Trust me, I am dumb. I am a retarded individual. I'm not allowed to say that word, so I'm just going to say that I am retarded. Nobody else is. Okay? And that these are just a bunch of older guys sitting together with their fears and expressing what's going on in our nation based on our experiences. And I couldn't agree more with Lee as far as this goes. And, Joe touched on it too, is we need nationalism again, or the pride of being American. Okay, I can't say nationalism because that's a bad word nowadays. All right, that reminds people of some bad things in World War II. But just be proud to be an American and take care of fellow Americans. It's about taking care of ourselves, not other people. Other people have different countries and they have representatives and they have stuff like that. We need to worry about ourselves and getting ourselves strong again. So I agree with that. And paying it forward for your fellow American is fantastic. Doesn't matter what your race is. Doesn't matter if you want to identify as a houseplant. Okay, you want to be a woman or you want to be a man or whatever it is. All right, that's your choice, because you were given rights based on our founding fathers and what we did here in America, and why soldiers lost their lives is so you can have an opinion, as you were, and have the ability to pretty much do whatever you want to do within reason of violating someone else's civil rights. So take that in consideration when you're out there, in public. We're all Americans, and we all just need to bring that love back. So that is such a great segue. I can't believe it. Lee, that's amazing. And Joe, great opinions, guys. And from your staff here at Dirty Dads Podcast. We love you guys. Listen, subscribe, and tell us what you think. Even if your opinion's different than ours, I'll read the comments. All right. Joe Dirty out.